Let's talk about healthy versus unhealthy coping mechanisms following divorce. So first things first, having a coping mechanism is really normal because divorce is a trauma. It is a shame-based identity crisis. Shame-based because relationships are areas where we think we should have nailed them and succeeded at. So we have some kind of shame response normally as people when we fail at something. We can kind of be a little bit hard on ourselves about that. An identity crisis because who we are for ourselves has now shifted that we're going through this divorce. And we identified with the role of being in that partnership or relationship, and now that that's removed, we don't kind of know who we are. So having this removed from your life overnight can create a really, really strong emotional and trauma response, leading to coping mechanisms to try and help us survive that moment. So coping mechanism is something that we use to meet a need. A survival mechanism, which is something we do to just kind of survive the moment as best we can sometimes be maladaptive, because in the meeting of some of our needs, we can then end up undermining some of our other needs. And net, although we are making ourselves feel better, it's often short term. And a survival mechanism can be one where we are either anxiously avoiding certain things or depressively avoiding certain things. So we can either be hyper and doing things that are not necessarily in our best interest, or we can be hiding out and really, really dark and in a helpless and depressed state. Either which way, these coping mechanisms that are survival in nature are not long-term good for us. They include things like being, a shopaholic, workaholic, gymaholic, or any kind of holic, alcoholic, taking drugs, taking stimulants to try and feel better and survive the moment, spending hours and hours on video games or hiding out with endless Netflix or reading books in a negative way, where we're just trying to consume things to numb out and not feel our feelings. So anything we try to do to numb out and not feel our feelings and to keep busy in the short term can be a maladaptive coping mechanism. So we've got to watch that, because too many of that, we actually start to really numb ourselves out. We're not paying attention to the emotions that are going on. By using too much of a coping mechanism, we numb our emotions out. And when you numb yourself out and you're not listening to the learning or the signal behind that emotion, you're not paying attention to certain needs that need meeting. Because an emotion is really a signal to us whether we're meeting needs or not meeting needs. So a coping mechanism that is maladaptive is kind of squashing one half of ourselves to kick the ball down the fence and not deal with what's right in front of us. A better series of coping mechanisms are mechanisms that produce growth and learning and a feeling of resiliency, and listen and lean into the emotions. So it's about building our resiliency and resourcing so that we can listen to the messages behind our emotions and increase the window of tolerance that we have to lean in and listen to those emotions without becoming completely spun out and dysregulated. So a growth resource, or a series of growth resources, meet needs without undermining others, meaning they are good for us. And sometimes things that are good for us are things we don't want to do. When you're going through something really traumatic, you want to bury your nose in a tub of Ben & Jerry's, you want to drink lots of alcohol, you want to check out, you want to, go and find lots of women and, numb yourself in all kinds of pursuits and pleasures. But it doesn't necessarily make us feel better overall. It doesn't process what has happened and lean into the learnings about what has happened. So a growth resource, in contrast, will be good for us long term. It includes things like eating well, sleeping well, slowing things down, focusing on techniques and things that make us feel connected to ourselves or to others, going on a slow walk with your dog, having a nice long chat with a friend, not a panicky, freaked out chat where we don't even remember what we're saying, but slowing things down and kind of really just connecting with ourselves and with others. Examples could include things like mindfulness, So mindfulness is when you slow everything down and you get present to what you're doing when you're doing it. A mindfulness walk could include all of the senses. So you're cycling through the senses as you're walking around your garden. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What are my sensations am I feeling on my skin? What do I smell? What do I taste? It kind of is slowing everything down from that perspective and connecting you to yourself and taking a moment to just be. Okay? That breath or that pause, we can now really hear and sense our emotions and pay attention and lean in to provide comfort to ourselves in that moment. When we are moving so fast in an anxious avoidance pattern, we can't pay attention to emotions at all. Or if we're so dark and depressed, we are so in the quicksand of it, we can't pay attention either. So you need to kind of balance and get yourself out of that dark place, get yourself out of that real anxious avoidance place with some growth resources that you can apply and put in. So the coping mechanisms that we use within our programs are all to boost growth resources. They are looking at all of the survival mechanisms that we use, the short-term emotion avoidance tactics that we use, looking at how they might undermine our needs overall, how they postpone our healing, how they help us kick the ball down the fence and not deal with what's right in front of us, help people kind of get onto the healing track. Because healing is really a function of learning, and if we don't listen to our emotions and process them, we will not recover. And you will stay in this kind of frozen, resigned state, often for years. So getting into those healthy spaces is what we do on our programs. We install this resourcing mechanism within the cocoon phase of our programs. And if you want to find out a little bit more about how you can use healthier coping mechanisms, chat with someone on our team, find out about our programs, and begin your healing journey today. Take care.